Tasting Hope in Upstate New York. 1 year of farming in the Finger Lakes. This article was originally published by Jonathan Dean in the spring issue of the Northeast Organic Farming Association's magazine, The Natural Farmer. For in-depth coverage of the farming and musical journey, check out the Farmer Dean YouTube channel, where I share updates about my move to the Hudson Valley to launch a community land project and art hub. Now on to the storytelling. The umami smells wafted through the barn that he built with his bare hands. Small cuts on tattered skin were a reminder of all that has been accomplished and all that is yet to be done. I took another whiff of the lion's mane mushrooms in the dehydrator and sipped my water bottle's green tea and tulsi. It was going to be a beautiful day. When I first arrived at Wellspring Forest Farm to study under Steve and Liza Gabriel in the spring of 2025, I knew I'd be working in the woods. I just didn't realize I would be changing alongside them. Spring flush. The farming season started off with one of the wettest springs on record. After days of seemingly endless rain, my muddied boots and I wondered if we would ever dry out. What soon followed was 4 months of nearly no rain. The swales dried up, the ponds shriveled, and it became harder to stick the rotational grazing fence stakes into the hardened topsoil. I pulled the sheep's water trough under the shade of a black locust tree and reminded myself that these are the swings we must prepare for. Farming starts with listening. I've always strived to be a good listener, but working with trees requires a deeper level of observation. As spring leafed out, the green blur of the forest started coming into focus. I was beginning to learn the names and roles of the many plants that called this land home. The summer solstice came and went, but the winds and dryness persisted. The previously lush grass began to coarsen and yellow. It was time to start feeding the sheep trees. Practicing silvopasture. I took out my silky folding saw and said a prayer in honor of their service to life. Their ruffled leaves waved back at me one last time as the sheep galloped over with excitement. The curious young lambs watched closely as their moms feasted. Filled with rich nutrients and water, the tree's leaves provided a welcome caloric and medicinal boost for the growing flock. For weeks, the sheep's normal pasture diet was supplemented and elevated with the abundant willow, locust, and buckthorn that dotted the landscape. The sheep relaxed in the shade and, unlike me, seemed nearly unaffected by the harsh summer heat. Here's the thing, though. At Wellspring Forest Farm, feeding the sheep trees isn't an accident or an act of desperation. It's an intentionally designed and lovingly stewarded system. We categorize this dynamic integration of trees into the rotational grazing system as silvopasture. Silvopasture, as my mentor Steve Gabriel defines in his popular 2019 book Silvopasture, is the intentional combination of trees, domesticated animals, and forages in a multi-layered system where each benefits from the relationship of the others. It was clear that the system was working as designed. As summer faded to fall, I fell in love with how these systems work together to build resilience in the landscape. The mushroom compost, chicken manure, and sheep manure fed the trees supported the ecology, and the ecology supported us. It then becomes our responsibility to complete this circle of mutual flourishing by caring for the trees. Together, we live in reciprocity, and the abundant fruits, nuts, and berries that bend from their branches are a welcomed gift from a day's hard work. I feel blessed by the opportunity to collaborate with trees. They are the true stars in this dance of life and share many often overlooked ecological benefits like filtering water, holding soil in place, creating animal habitat, shading the ground, supporting the underground web of life, sequestering carbon, reducing erosion, and so much more. To the towering grandparents and young seedlings, I say thank you. And to Steve and Liza Gabriel, I echo those same words. I'm forever grateful for your mentorship and friendship. You are true companions of fungi and trees, and your humble approach to farming and stewardship is inspiring. Thank you for showing me how much abundance a life in agroforestry can gift. So, what makes a good teacher? Throughout 2025, I found myself regularly peppering Steve with questions about agroforestry, mycology, and ecology. He often chose to respond to my questions with more questions, and while at times I would have welcomed more direct answers, I knew that this approach was the sign of a good teacher. Last year, I was guided through many critical thinking explorations that ultimately deepened my understanding of the interconnected systems at play and the rhythms of the land. And despite all the many learnings and reflections, the questions continued to flow. What are the Northeast's biggest social and ecological needs? What are the necessary staples of our bioregion's future food pantry? How did these lands look before colonial settlement? What stage of ecological succession are these woods currently in? How can I best make an impact on the landscape's health, and how am I uniquely suited to support this larger social and ecological movement? Falling forward. When the intense heat and dryness finally broke in September, we rejoiced as the rains refilled the swales, ponds, and wells. We welcomed the cool air as it breezed through the hills and guided the speckled leaves on their final descent. The snowstorms would soon be arriving, and it was almost my time to return to the Philly area for the holidays. 2025 highlights. Amid the chaos of the world, 2025 was deeply enriching. I step into this growing season holding many experiences that continue to make me smile. Here are a few to recount. Crunching raw acorns with Russell Wallach from Bread Tree Farms, presenting research on soil health and growing resilient trees at Blue Hill Farm, plucking a soft and perfectly ripe American persimmon off the tree after a morning of planting garlic with Sean Dombrowski at Edible Acres, planting, caring for, and harvesting from chestnut trees with Akiva Silver at Twisted Tree Farm and Brian Caldwell at Hemlock Grove Farm, trying nanny berries with Jonathan Bates at Food Forest Farm and planting a Miyawaki forest, piling on loads of organic materials in a new syntropic agroforestry planting with Roger Geetson and Eric Schellenberg at Black Creek Farm and Nursery, listening to Lucy Garrison and Chaw Chang at Stick and Stone Farm share how farming collectively helps them distribute 800 CSA shares through the Full Plate Farm Collective, getting certified through Cornell's Master Forest Owner Program and trying birch syrup from the Arnott Teaching and Research Forest, tasting pawpaws and honey bears at Dillman Hill, Cornell's student-run farm, learning about high tunnel vegetable production with Aaron Munzer and Kara Cusalito at Plowbreak Farm, co-facilitating a panel about the future of food with Tor Oshner from Oshner Farms and learning about their unique approach to rotating crops, training the next generation of farmers, growing grains, and integrating an organic mill, Farmer Ground Flour, and beloved local bakery, Wide Awake, into their operations, cooking tomalitos at Stone Bend Farm and touring Brett Chedzoy's mature silvopasture at Angus Glen Farm, communing with Nathaniel Thompson from Remembrance Farm and hearing him speak about how their biodynamic and spiritual approach to farming allows them to produce one of the best yogurts in the world, in my opinion. Harvesting hundreds of pounds of mushrooms and planting dozens of oaks, chestnuts, and willows with Steve Gabriel at Wellspring Forest Farm, inoculating fallen poplar trees with mushrooms during our forest and fungi kids camps, moving sheep and chickens around the pastures and woods, then moving them some more and some more. We determined when and where to move them based on the weather, what was leafing out, where we wanted to cycle nutrients, and how we wanted to manage the vegetation. Supporting many research and education projects related to indigenous microorganism cultivation, growing willow as a silvopasture fodder species, and managing deer browse on young trees with a 3D fence, healing my body with movement, breathwork, and whole food cooking, singing freedom songs and sharing gifts with Petra Page Mann at Fruition Seeds, gathering and singing in community with Tracy Robertson and the Vocal Bloom family, touring the expansive intentional communities at Eco Village and Whitehawk and observing the power of living in community, getting stung by paper wasps and experiencing intimacy with poison parsnip on more places on my body than I'd like to admit, avoiding the fuzzy caterpillars, and finally finishing my debut musical poetry album, Dawn. We'll be announcing the release of the first single soon, and through it all, I remain grateful for the people and plants that brought meaning to my life and healing to the world. It is truly a gift to learn from people that have spent decades sowing seeds of community, food, and family. Wrapping up. I learned a lot from my year farming in the Finger Lakes, but I'm left most with the idea that a farm, like a city, is never finished. There will always be another project to do and dream to actualize. There will always be another seedling to grow and structure to build. There will always be another tree to transplant and berry to harvest. I'm reconsidering farming not as a seemingly never-ending to-do list, but instead as a lifestyle of movement, beauty, and collective care. The final day. Most of the leaves had now fallen, and I slipped on my wet boots one last time. I hurried to lay down as much compost and mulch as possible on the freshly planted line of elderberries and mulberries. The sun was setting on the farming season, and it became clear that we simply wouldn't have enough time to finish all that we aspired to. I quickly shifted gears and returned to exactly where I started off the year, under the motherly maple trees in the shiitake mushroom laying yard. My final task was to prepare the yard for next year and sweep up the crunchy maple leaves one last time. This task, with this exact rake, was a trail I had tracked before, but this time I felt just a bit more connected to the cycle and rhythms of this place. The day was drawing to a close, and I smiled as the leaf pile grew. A rush of gratitude filled my spirit as I looked up to admire the beautiful pink gift fade into the expansive sky. Looking forward. So when the morning dew turns to frost and you've soaked your last shiitake log of the season, it's important to remember that the days will soon grow longer and that blossoming flowers will once again bless the pastures. The Corolla was packed up and the snow began to fall. I winded through New York's rolling hills and before returning to Philly, would first make a pit stop at the Hudson Valley Nut Festival. After delivering a 25-pound bag of black walnuts from Black Squirrel Farms and warming with some delicious hickory milk, I was back on the road and the leafless trees zoomed by once again. As I picked up speed and navigated the fresh dusting of snow, I realized that my car held almost the same exact belongings as it had 9 months ago, only this time it carried a bit of extra love. Sweet potatoes spilled over cup holders and were accompanied by elderberry extracts, tubs of spiced chestnut cream, lion's mane powders, bottles of pear cider, maple-coated hazelnuts, bags of dried herbs, and mason jars of apple butter and peach chutney. I crossed back into Pennsylvania with a heart full of hope and a phone filled with new friends and their contacts tagged Finger Lakes. Looking back, 2025 was a year of focus filled with joy and a deep affirmation of my practice and path. I'm left with memories of dancing through golden, multicolored autumn woods and running with sheep to fresh pasture. I can still taste the caramelized onions blanketing lion's mane stir fries and deep orange yolks settling into the crevices of a fresh sourdough slice. Crispy Asian pears crunched alongside toasted walnuts, mixed greens, Dijon, and cranberries. I still savor the flavors of the year and await for the day when I can once again drown fresh peaches in sweet yogurt and fill my hands with as many berries as they will hold. I leave 2025 feeling satiated, yet far from satisfied. As I type these words on a cool March day, I move forward knowing that agroforestry is more than just a set of ecological farming practices. It's a social movement grounded in economic and environmental justice. It is being built around dinner tables and community gatherings, in renovated barns and dusty, cold churches, in the backs of bumpy pickup trucks, and on distant country roads where strangers will soon become neighbors. So as we take another breath and sing alongside the flittering songbirds, we must remember that we too are part of this dance of life, if only we take a moment to slow down and see it. Thank you. You can join the conversation by subscribing to the Farmer Dean YouTube channel and following along on Instagram. If you're interested in keeping up with the forthcoming community land project, you can drop your info in the link at the bottom of the page. Till soon, and with love, Jonathan. Touch Soil is a reader-supported publication. If you enjoy this storytelling, we welcome you to consider becoming a paid subscriber to support more regenerative fieldwork. And finally, no AI tools were used in the creation of this article. All research, writing, and revisions are my own work. Thank you.